Celtic Myths and Legends by T.W. Rolleston. Chapter 8. Myths and Tales of the Cymry. Bardic Philosophy. The absence in early Celtic literature of any world myth or any philosophic account of the origin and constitution of things was noticed at the opening of our third chapter. In Gallic literature there is, as far as I know, nothing which even pretends to represent early Celtic thought on this subject. It is otherwise in Wales. Here there has existed for a considerable time a body of teaching purporting to contain a portion, at any rate, of that ancient Druidic thought, which, as Chaucer tells us, was communicated only to the initiated and never written down. This teaching is principally to be found in 2 volumes entitled Bardic, a compilation made from materials in his possession by a Welsh bard and scholar named Llewellyn Sion of Glamorgan, towards the end of the 16th century, and edited with translation by J. A. Williams, ap Ithel, for the Welsh Manuscript Society. Modern Celtic scholars pour contempt on the pretensions of works like this to enshrine any really antique thought. Thus, Mr. Ivor B. John, all idea of a Bardic esoteric doctrine involving pre-Christian mythic philosophy must be utterly disregarded. And again, the nonsense talked upon the subject is largely due to uncritical invention of pseudo-antiquaries of the 16th, the 17th, and 18th centuries. The Mabinogion, page 45 and 54. Still, the Bardic order was certainly at one time in possession of such a doctrine. That order had a fairly continuous existence in Wales, and though no critical thinker would build with any confidence a theory of pre-Christian doctrine on a document of the 16th century, it does not seem wise to scout altogether the possibility that some fragments of antique lore may have lingered even so late as that in Bardic tradition. At any rate, Bardic is a work of considerable philosophic interest, and even if it represents nothing but a certain current of chimeric thought in the 16th century, it is not unworthy of attention by the student of things Celtic. Purely Druidic, it does not even profess to be, for Christian personages and episodes from Christian history figure largely in it. But we come occasionally upon a strain of thought, which, whatever else it may be, is certainly not Christian, and speaks of an independent philosophic system. Well, pretty much every church has non-biblical doctrines. I can't think of one that I've looked into that doesn't. Even stuff that doesn't contradict, even stuff that's against parts of the Bible that don't contradict other parts of the Bible. In this system, 2 primary existences are contemplated: God and Caithral, who stand respectively for the principle of energy tending towards life and the principle of destruction tending towards nothingness. Caithral is realized in unknown, which may be rendered as the abyss or chaos. Unknown was the word for Hades or fairyland. Okay. In the beginning, there was nothing but God, and unknown, organized life, by the word God pronounced his ineffable name, and the man-red was formed. The man-red was the principal substance of the universe. It was conceived as a multitude of minute, indivisible particles, atoms, in fact, each being a microcosm for God. It is complete in each of them, while at the same time each is a part of God, the whole. The totality of being, and now exists, is represented by 3 concentric circles. The innermost of them, where life sprung from, Anun, is called Epred, and is the stage of struggle and evolution, the contest of life with Caithral, The next is the circle of Gwynfide, or Gwenfid, how's that pronounced, or purity, in which life is manifested as a pure, rejoicing force, having attained its triumph over evil. The last and uttermost circle is called Hugunt, or infinity. Here all predicates fail us, and the circle represented graphically, not by a bounding line but by diverging rays, is inhabited by God alone. So, see, we have it's kind of like a sun. Which actually does influence the thing that God is like a circle outside of everything, and or God dwells in this beyond and not here. The following extract from Bardic, in which the alleged Bardic teaching is conveyed in catechism form, will serve to show the order of ideas in which the writer's mind moved. Question: Whence didst thou proceed? I came from the great world, having my beginning in Anun. Where art thou now, and how camest thou to what thou art? I am in the little world, whither I come, having traversed the circle of Abred, and now I am a man, at its termination and extreme limits. What wert thou before thou didst become a man in the circle of Abred? I was in Anun, the least possible that I was capable of life, and the nearest possible to absolute death. And I came in every form, and through every form capable of a body and life to the state of man along the circle of Abred, where my condition was severe and grievous during the age of ages, ever since I was parted from Anun, from the dead, by the gift of God, and his great generosity, and his unlimited, endless love. Okay, so we see Anun is not as hell, really, but sort of an Ashia Janut, sort of. But in monotheism, humans are Nasut. They do manifest materially, but they don't switch. They don't become Malakut. They don't become Janut. They don't become Lahut, and there's other language terms that I can use. I can switch to Kabbalah and that sort of thing, but I'm not going to. I want to leave off the question and answers as have been, but through how many different forms didst thou roam, and what happened unto thee? Through every form capable of life, in water and earth and air. And there happened unto me every severity, every hardship, every evil, and every suffering. And but little was the goodness, our Gwynfid, before I became a man. Gwynfide is another way that some people are going to pronounce that, but cannot be obtained without seeing and knowing everything. But it is not possible to see or know everything without suffering everything. And there can be no full and perfect love that does not produce those things which are necessary to lead to the knowledge that causes Gwynfid. Every being, we are told, shall attain to the circle of Gwynfid at last. Bardic, Volume 1, page 224. 224. There is much here that reminds of a Gnostic or Oriental thought. It is certainly very unlike Christian orthodoxy of the 16th century. As a product of the chimeric mind of that period, the reader may take it for what it is worth, without troubling himself either with antiquarian theories or with their refutations. Let us now turn to the really ancient work, which is not philosophic, but creative and imaginative, produced by the British bards and fabulists of the Middle Ages. But before we go on to set forth what we shall find in this literature, we must delay a moment to discuss one thing which we shall not